You're not live.
It says we are live.
And are these people on the people say there are the ones that are in the group?
We're ready to go. Yeah, I will start the introduction.
Okay.
Super.
I'm nervous now.
Well,
Do you
I want to.
do you see the screen? I always get nervous, by the way. I
Yes.
always tell the participants that I am.
No problem. Well, we want to give a warm welcome to everyone that we see so far. We see a lot of people here in our people list, and we appreciate that you are joining us today to learn about building your workforce, recruitment, and retention. So, just a couple of logistic notes throughout the presentation. If you have any questions for the speaker, we would ask you to use the Q&A, which is over to the right side of your screen. So please go Q&A. The last 10 minutes, we're going to go to that area and take questions from there. Now, Lourdes Gonzalez, who is our speaker, is definitely happy to take any clarifications as we go along that you might need. So please keep them coming in the Q&A, and if I see a quick clarification or anything like that, I can feed that to her while she is speaking. And you will also note there is a chat function to discuss items with other folks who are attending. Please keep that for the attendees and then keep the speaker information in the Q&A. So that should work out. We will also probably have you all join a poll, so get ready to experience that in just a couple of minutes. We want to, before we begin, thank all of the Ag Labor Forum sponsors who are supporting the event, and we also want to give a warm welcome to our featured speaker for this session, who is Lourdes Gonzalez. Now, Lourdes has extensive experience in safety and supervisory training, in HR management, as well as consulting on risk management and operational productivity in various industries. Lourdes is a graduate of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and has a master's degree in business administration from Columbia Southern University. She's a certified industrial hygiene manager, a licensed property and casualty, a life and health producer, and holds a commercial lines coverage specialist certification, as well as an agribusiness and farm insurance specialization. So, Lourdes, I turn the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, this is my first experience with this format, so bear with me, okay? And I soul search about how to cover this very large topic of recruitment and retention in the workforce, and I wanted to have an idea on what kind of commodity are you guys in, so that I can use examples that are relevant. So there is going to be running a poll right now to ask us what kind of commodity are you guys in, Tara? Oh,
Yes, I have the poll, and the poll says it is active.
okay. Let me
I
see
do
the
not
poll.
see it, however, so I'm wondering how to. Oh, Lourdes, on yours, go ahead and click Other and click Submit on your side.
I
So
don't. Oh,
everybody
pause,
can
pause,
hit
pause, pause. I got
Submit.
it. And I am other. And I lunch poll. Okay,
Yes, so we're in the
submit.
polls box for those who are joining us. And we're looking at results that are currently coming in. And we've got 6 answers, 6 people in the vineyards section. Oh, that's increasing now. We've got several others. One vegetable and row crop. So if you're just joining us, look into the polls area,
Mm-hmm.
and we're answering in which area of agriculture are you working? And we'd love to know where everyone is coming from. And vineyards is growing by leaps and bounds.
And then are they doing also the one where the company recruits the labor? I talk about they're giving me a percentage of people that are central office takes applications, the
Yeah, that's for
formats,
later. Yeah, not this minute, but we'll do that later
but it's
whenever
giving
you're
me
ready.
answers.
Um, it should only give answers on which area of agriculture are you working.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to click End Poll, but it looks like 9. Berries is 0, vineyards is 9.
Mm-hmm.
Wineries 0, vegetables and row crops is 1, and other
Mm-hmm.
is 5.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so going back to this, then one of the things that I wanted to start is what is the goal of active recruitment, selection, and retention of a labor forces to attract, hold, and motivate the right quantity of, and quality of employees to perform the work of the organization. That is our goal. And it doesn't matter if the employee is an employee that is doing harvesting of vegetables or is picking up berries or está deshojando or is applying pesticides. um, we need to get the right quality of employee to perform the work that they're assigned. So having clarity on this is important because sometimes people want to get only the warm body that is going to perform the job, and then we wonder why our productivity is off, or why we have lawsuits, or why do we have issues with our labor force. Um, so one of the areas that I want to talk to in a very short period of time, because I only have like 40 minutes to talk to you about this topic, is it is a complex and challenging endeavor. About 20 years ago, we were in a conference for the Agricultural Personnel Management Association in San Luis Obispo, and there was a professor from uh, one of the universities in California, and he said we are going to have a shortage of labor. And it was more than 25 years. It was like 30 years ago. And people were going, you're crazy. There's a lot of people trying to cross the border and come and work in agriculture. And he says that the birth rate and the females in Mexico has decreased considerably. The conditions, the economic conditions are improving, and in all of those forces, there's going to be a shortage of labor, and we are living on it now. So when we're talking about recruitment, selection, and retention of employees, then we need to talk about all of these gamut of things that affect the way that the flow of seasonal employees come, and even the people that are staying in agriculture. One of my hobbies has always been to ask people where they come from. And I was in Las Vegas with my husband at one point, and I asked the waiter, where he come from, and he told me he was from a state in Mexico. And I said, "Why are you doing waiter? Did you come to be to work in the hospitality industry?" And he said, "No, I started in agriculture." And of course, I'm asking him why he moved from agriculture. And if you really look at the people that are working and that from certain ethnic background, or that they have something in common with you, and you ask them where they started their careers, there's a big percentage of them they started in agriculture, but they moved to other places. So the complex endeavor in here is, how do we retain employees that are going to be very valuable to us? um, Economic changes. They're asking, to go. When I was in San Luis Obispo and in Santa Maria a few years back, and I was talking to a vineyard manager. He was telling me we're losing a lot of people to the berries, because the berries are paying them just a few cents more, and so they have people that were very qualified to do pruning of vineyards, and they couldn't keep them because they had to stay competitive on that. The demographic shifts. Where are people coming from? Are they staying more in their home country? Are we the logistics of politics, the multiculturalism? I see it happening when there's friction between crews, because people are coming from different cultures now. There's from Central America, or they're from Oaxaca, and before the people were from Jalisco, and they have a different way of eating and talking and behaving, and different value system, and sometimes even different religions, and that affects the way that the glue that holds the teams together. Heightened global competition. N- Believe me, now that I have worked with Gowan for about 8 years, and I work with 13 countries, I realize what a the things that we have to do to stay current and to stay competitive. We have to be leaner and meaner and more effective than anybody else, because the other agencies, other companies are being more effective in other countries where they have maybe more competitive advantage. um, Organization restructuring, the way we did work before is being changing. We have a little bit more mechanization, more ability to do the work without and be more effective in the way we do work. So we need people that are going to be more technically savvy. Legislation that is affecting the way that the flow of employees are coming through the border, and a host of other factors. I mean, I we can spend half of the day just looking at how this impacts the work that you're doing and why are we having a shortage of labor. I just want you to be aware of this when you are looking at your filling out your crews, or filling out your mechanics, or your foremen, or your supervisors, or your managers, or your CFO in your organization. So the other part is, and as we were looking at the other question that I asked, that I wanted to ask, is who does the recruitment for, let's say, the crews in your operation? If it's the foreman, if it's the supervisor, if it is a centralized location where they apply, if it's an employee, a, 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 a word of mouth, if it's relatives coming in to work with you. They're all different ways of staffing your company, but they have their own share of challenges. So, but one of the things is that responsibility is that it should be shared by land managers, HR, and HR specialists. Sometimes by the time that they get the HR department to fill in the paperwork, they realize that the employees that they're bringing in might not be the best qualified to do the job. So we have to really have flawless communication between the land manager, your foremen, your supervisors, the people that bring you the crews. One of my biggest challenges that I have in my work with agriculture throughout the years is when you go and ask an employee in the fields, um, who do you work for? And goes, oh, I work from Don Jose. And I said, no, no, no. Which company do you work for? They don't have the slightest idea who they're working for. Maybe they see it in their paycheck in the corner because he has a logo there. But they have this impression that they work for the foreman, that they work for the supervisor. And imagine the disconnect that employees that are working for you and are going to represent you, and they can get hurt, or they can hurt somebody else, or they can not harvest your crop properly. They could not follow the food safety procedures, but they're not. They think that the only person they're responsible to is their foreman. So if the foreman gives them wrong information on how to perform, you're up the creek with no paddle. So have good communication. Make sure that the crews understand who they're working for. And personnel professionals develop programs to recruit qualified workers. In some companies, this is very sophisticated and follows a pattern, and everybody knows how to do the work. In some companies, is like mayhem. The start of the season is like World War III. People are running around, upset because they don't have enough employees, or the employees came but they have not been onboarded, and oh, we'll fill the paperwork later. And you're having difficulties getting a proper procedures on how to hire and staff your crews in the middle of the season, or when the season starts too soon. And if it's not your situation, then take a pat in your back and say, I have a good job. Operating managers or supervisors make the final decision, hiring decisions. They should be making them, because they're the ones that are going to be working with these employees. They're the ones that will be able to tell in a short period of time whether that employee is learning the craft, he has experience in the craft, or is going to tank. And they need to get rid of employees that are not performing in a legal way, obviously. Um, I had a situation where there was an employee and a supervisor, and goes, well, if they're not working, the rest of the crew will put pressure on them. And because they say we're making their check. That is not a good way of managing your labor force and the productivity of them. So operating managers should make the decisions of whether they're going to retain the employee or not. The firm has determined which employee will be promoted, demoted, transferred, or laid off, with a good communication with their supervisor and with HR, because sometimes we promote the wrong people for the wrong reasons, or we demote them, or we transfer them to another crew because they're problematic and they figure it might be somebody else's problem. Um, the communication of it's an ability to motivate the labor force, to motivate the rest of the crew, because they are going to be observing. And if they think that you are favoritist because this person is from the same state, or because he's related to one of your to you by marriage, or is related to you, period, then they're going to feel that there's favoritism within the crews and the balance of power is off. So the staffing, the labor force should be a very, very open process of looking at what I told you guys at the beginning is to get the right quantity and quality of employees to perform the work of the organization. If we don't do it that way, then you don't have a system that is going to be effective. Um, the line managers actually evaluate the performance of workers, and that's another part where um, it is never really black and white. I was asked a long time ago to do a workshop for AgSafe, and I asked them, the instructor that was going to do employee performance was not able to attend, and they gave me the workshop, the format, and goes, you can use this. And I said, what is my target audience? And they say, these are mostly foremen and crew leads. And I said, and you're talking about doing a 5-page performance evaluation in writing? Are we delusional? These persons are most of the time, 99.9% of the time, are not going to do that kind of detail of performance, but nevertheless they do evaluate the performance of employees. It's a little bit less formalized. And I say the topic is still very relevant and it should be discussed, but not through this line. And I say, would you mind if I change the presentation and make it more hands-on, more how do you guys evaluate who's doing the work and who's not doing the work within the company, and how do you call their attention, and where do you document it so that eventually you can get rid of the employees that are not going to make it. And it made a whole much of difference. We ended up having a very interactive process with foremen and supervisors about how they evaluate the performance of employees. If your company does not have a really clear idea, if you have not trained your first level management to really evaluate performance in a legal, in a very fair way, then your company might have performance issues later on because there's no they might not be doing the proper way of evaluating the needs. um, the components of an staffing system, and I'm going to go really fast through this. One of the big problems about staffing the organization is not having a good job descriptions. That means that you don't have a good analysis and design. What are the essential duties of the jobs that you need to fill? If you have a mechanic, what are the things that he need able to perform? If you're going to be having a tractor driver, oh, we'll train them here. I understand that, but you might be leaving low hanging fruit because those people might be, you already have people there that have those skill sets and you can hit the ground running. So having a job description or an evaluation, my big problem is that a lot of the job analysis or the job descriptions or evaluations that you have are made for the reason of workers' compensation. It's to return people to come back to work. And that is totally a different angle than when you have a job description for the purpose of getting the right person in the right job. Do it for the right reasons. The angle in which you do it will determine that degree of detail that you're going to put that. How do you plan the human resources component? Do I anticipate future needs? Are you looking, next season, 2 seasons from now, 3 seasons from now? Who are the people that operate in our company now that we need, that is essential that we keep, or which ones are going to need in the future? So that forecasting of labor force is very important. The recruiting, how do you attract qualified applicants? I had a situation and I'm not going to finish this slide. Sorry, guys. I'll try to be as fast as I can. But um, that I was trying to discuss with a farmer, and he says, "Oh, this is an irrigator. He's just they're a dime a dozen. I can get some across the border." And I said, "Really? Are you telling me that these irrigators are not skill set employees? That they have skills that are not duplicatable immediately by somebody else? Do they not know the fields and the way that the water runs from here? Or when you put a sprinkler system, which side is more sandy and which has more clay content? Do they know where to order the water and where are the openings from the canal so that they can better provide the water for there? These are skill sets. These are not duplicatable overnight." Assume that you understand what are the things that are valuable in your labor force that are worth retaining, because the retention of the quality employees is essential for the effectiveness of your company. um, Selecting, choosing the right employee, not for the I mean, I was one time in the fields, and they were going to start the harvest season here in the Imperial Valley, and I was in the border town, and there was a lady that, I mean, you should have seen the girls that are coming to, they were dressed to the nines. You would think that they came to a dance. And I looked at this little lady there, and I said, God, what is this, a dance? I was in my jeans and work boots, and um fairly dusty vehicle. And the lady goes, oh no, that they're the ones that are going to get hired first, because the foremans are going to choose the pretty ones, regardless of whether they know how to do the job or not. And I chuckle at that. But tell me, do we choose the right employees for the right reasons? And I'm not saying that that is happening now or not, but be aware of that. Do we do performance appraisals? Do we evaluate the performance and progress on the job of employees? Doesn't have to be in a triplicate form. But if your foreman at one point, if I ask them, who are your best employees? And he's able to tell me why and how, and the fact that he chooses those to start the job first in the season, then you're saying this person is doing the informal performance appraisals. Career planning and development, that you leave a lot of people, and people leave organizations because they don't see a way of advancing. I wish I had more time to give you good examples on how the planning and developing of careers within the organization, even on those unskilled workers that never went to school, but they're driven, and they have passion for the job and curiosity, would improve productivity in your organization. How do you administer your labor force? Do you have internal and related internal functions with regards to this, so that you see who are your doers and checkers, who are the ones that are going to advance within the company? And then evaluate that the overall effectiveness of your crews and your departments. Who are the ones that are doing a good job and who are not? The forecasting part, it's in itself. I had like 15 slides on how to do requirement forecasting, and I had to cut it to one. An estimation of the number and kind of employees that the organization will need for future dates to meet these objectives. No, how many number of employees would you need, and where are you going to get them? And are they going to have the skill sets already built in, or you have to retrain them? What mixes of jobs do you have? Are they going to be multifaceted? Can they do several jobs so that you can be able to move them around as you need? And then judgment plays a sizable role in forecasting and influences the usefulness of the results. Recruiting internally, do not underestimate that this is a very valuable way of retaining employees, and then getting people that are going to be passionate about your organization. I was in Modesto at one point with a company, and they had an employee who was a supervisor, and I started talking to him during the break in my training session, and he says, oh, I love this company. I was a farm worker across the way in that other farm, and the farmer here asked me, he saw me working from time to time, and he asked me, he goes, would you like to come and work for me? I see that you have a really good work ethic. And he goes, and I made a decision to come here, and it has made all the difference. They have made me. But do you know how powerful that comment is? Do you know how much, when you have people bound to you by loyalty, by the ability of seeing that this company, that they owe this company their career, and that they pay it forward. So a promotion policy that first considers insiders before looking at outsiders boosts morale and motivation. It should be standard practice to all organizations. It is not always possible or practical because firms may need fresh ideas. Sometimes when we become too inbred, then uh, you're not looking at innovation and looking at things different. But on the overall, I've seen really good programs where companies really promote from within. They have training sessions for people that are interested to become a tractor driver, and they're consistent with the policy of letting everybody try out, and then they choose the best in class from that group. Does it cost money? Yes, but the rewards that you're going to get are immense. The company is already aware of the employees' capabilities. They know who are the curious ones. They know, do not do it for the wrong reasons. Do not do it as a way of increasing nepotism. But you have the people that you know in your organization that have a good work ethic, that are good, that they're curious, and that they're going to try to do their best, that they're hungry for advancement. Um, and promotions is image trigger a series of promotions. Sometimes people don't want to do it because he says, "This is my best worker, and if I let him go, then I have to fill that position." And they need to know that they are doing the best so that they benefit the whole, not just their department or their crew. So, in recruiting to attract qualified applicants, are those activities undertaken to encourage sufficient number of qualified people to apply for employment in the organization, and that you have enough an adequate supply of applicants. I used to I work in the fields. I have to disclose this. I cut broccoli, cauliflower. I did transplanting. I put irrigation pipe. I disc fields. I made beds and I planted vegetables. And so my first career is in agronomy. So I spent maybe 15 years of my life working in farms and doing the actual work. So when I'm telling you this, is not because I saw it or because I lived it. And you saw the uh, um the selection of employees, and the fact that they were hungry to advance. So when you look at a qualified applicants, look internally and then look at externally, but make sure that you are a little bit picky on the people that you bring in, so that you select the most qualified applicants for a position. Remember when I told you, once you have the employees there, you have to evaluate, are they doing the job? Are they going to master the job? One of the biggest problems is when somebody gets injured and you're doing the investigation on their workers' comp and they say, we knew from the beginning that he was not going to work out. He was just not that engaged on the process. He was waiting to have an accident so he can get it out. And I said, really? If you as a foreman are not looking at how to best provide the most qualified employees and the most engaged ones, and you're telling me that you knew that this person was average at best and you didn't do anything about it, is that a good supervisor, a good foreman, a good manager, a good owner of a company? So we need to talk about performance appraisals. This doesn't come by osmosis. It's not just a wish list. It's not like, oh, this is going to be a good foreman, let's just put him there and then maybe he'll know how to do this. You have to give them the skill sets. They call them soft skills, but they're not soft. They're very, very hard to do. Holding somebody accountable for their performance is really difficult. Performance appraisals is concerned with determining how well the employee is carrying the assigned tasks. And it's also to evaluate promotions, pay increases. I used to go to the fields and do and visit the crews, and sometimes these guys will come to me and goes, you know what? They made this guy a tractor driver. He came after me. I have been here the longest. And I say, yeah, but are you giving them the value that this guy has? Have you shown the desire to work extra hours or to put more time and effort on doing the job right? And they all look at me like, I don't understand. And I said, no. Do you think that you're equal to him on the way that you perform your job? And then they start backtracking. But people that start getting upset because they think that if you put enough time, you're going to be promoted or you're going to give more responsibilities, need to be held accountable and hold back. And you need to talk the talk and walk the walk. Um, no, performance is the means where the employees are promoted, and you evaluate the effectiveness of the recruitment and selection activities and approaches and procedures. I was working with a group one time, and it was in an office, and the lady was really frustrated. And goes, it's like pushing. like pulling a person the cart before the horse. Nobody wants to work here, and goes, I'm surrounded by mediocrity. And I say, if you are surrounded by mediocrity, it's because you created a mediocrity. You have to hold them accountable for the deliverables that you hire them to do. And it's not easy, but it needs to be done. If you're going to be best in class, if your company is going to survive, if your company is going to be competitive. So performance operations are essential. Career planning and development is a formalized approach taken by organizations to ensure that people with the proper qualifications and experiences are available when needed. I can tell you stories. I mean, and I don't have that much time, but I wanted to tell you stories about people that were very, they had the skill sets, or they had the raw material to develop into a force of nature. And people will go, no, I don't want him to be motivated. Let me use an example. I was doing tractor driving, no, forklift driver certification for a company in Casa Grande. This is in the in Arizona, and the management wanted me to train somebody to do in-house training. And the guy that I was trying to train didn't have the slightest interest in learning. He was related to one of the management people, and because of that, they wanted him to be promoted, and the guy was just not interested. Every time that he had new employees, he dragged me all the way from Yuma, Arizona to Casa Grande so I could do the training, because he didn't want to do it. He says, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. When I was doing the training, there was a gentleman there that was really good at his job. And he's like, he asked questions that were really insightful. And in the break, I said, you know about safety and health? And he goes, yes, I'm an engineer in Mexico and I work with the petrochemical industry. And I didn't, I was not advancing there, so I came here. But I'm learning English. And I said, you speak English? He goes, no, but I'm learning it in the nighttime and I want to advance in the company. So I went back and I'm all excited. And this guy used to do safety for a chemical, the petrochemical industry, the oil industry. And I thought, whoa, this is perfect. We dovetail on both of them and we have the best in class. And he said, the owner said, no, 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 I don't want that. I just, I want this guy to be the one that develops. And I wasn't able to convince him. So I had other contacts in the ag industry, and there was a possibility of passing this guy to another company. And right now, he's probably one of the best risk managers. Excuse me. I have to drink water. It's one of the best loss control consultants in the industry in Arizona, and it's not even in the ag industry now. And I feel like I had a little bit to do with the fact that he gave him that little push to get into somewhere else. If you don't develop the people and the talent you have in your company, somebody else will steal them. So it is a way of meshing career aspirations of employees with the needs of the company. Do the mining of talent within your organization. And it starts from when you hire an employee and having an ability to have that conversation about their aspirations and their goals. And under these activities are promotions, demotions, transfers, resignations, terminations, retirements, and layoffs. Is the career planning and development of every employee in the organization, including your crew members. Now, all of these, the context of staffing is managed by different parts within your organization. Some are external and some are internal. And I wanted to go over at these fairly briefly. The legal and political environment, and I'm not going to talk about politics, but they do affect how we staff our organization. The workforce and the labor market. Who's eating our lunch? Who's paying better wages? There's a program, a company in Facebook or a website. It's called El Chisme Filero, and Laura Penera gave me a contact with that, and I'm fascinated by the amount of things that are put there. But I'll tell you what, these people have a voice, a voice in the social media regarding which companies are good to work for and which ones are not. And do you think that the rest of the farm workers are not looking at this? So they have the workforce, the labor market. How are they being represented? When I was a teenager. I was in my 19, 20. We used to go 15 years old, 16. We used to go to the dances in Salinas, California. And people would ask you when you were asked to dances, who do you work for? And you say, oh, I work for Barendo, or I work for, TNA. Well, TNA didn't exist then, but for Barendo, then you say, ooh, she works for a good company, because it was a reputation that this company was big enough and paid well enough and had benefits, and it took care of employees. So if I ask tomorrow, what reputation does your organization has? Ask yourself that question. How do I market it better so that people don't start giving them the reputation that you're a quitacueros, that you are treating people with a whip, or that you are so easy to get advantage of? That's the other side of the equation. The economy. How are we doing as an economy? What are the challenges that we have? And I'm not even going to talk about COVID and the challenges that we have here. Who are our customers, and how do they affect how we do our work? Social responsibility and filling out forms on that um, has made a lot of comments, has really affected how the customers do business with companies. What are our competitors, and what are they doing that is eating our lunches, taking our employees? What are we? How are we using technology to be able to recruit, to be able to retain, to make it easier for them to work, to be paid, to receive money? As a society, how are we doing? And do we have unions, and how do we work with them? Those are external of the environment. But in the internal one, how good are we as an organization on having mission and objectives? Where are we going, and how are we going to do it? What are the policies that we have in place, and how consistent we are with those policies? And then we have the organizational climate, management philosophy, and other functional areas to retain employees. Because I only have like 3 slides, and I'm going to give you guys enough time to ask questions. Employee retention. To recognize employees, do we have recognition? Are we being valued as an employee? Believe me, we all have the pyramid of needs, and realizing yourself as a farm worker is needed. I can give you examples on when I was working in the field, since the supervisor would throw the checks at us. He would pass like a bat out of hell in his pickup truck and leave dust all over our tacos. Do you think we felt very appreciated? How about if the foreman comes and says, good morning, how's everybody doing? It's just as simple as that. Acknowledge the people that work within your organization. Achievement, are they doing a job well? Do we recognize for that? Do we have opportunity to progress? Do we pay them consistently wages that are going to be competitive? Do we give them responsibility and then hold them accountable for it? Do we have an organizational culture that fosters that team effort? Do we develop employees? Do we have flexibility in work practices? Sometimes, the balance of work and life is very hard in agriculture. Do we work with good people that are going to treat people fairly well? Do we have belief systems that align with the organization? And do we have a sense of control over our own destiny, our autonomy? Those are really key points that will retain employees in an organization. And then we have to train the supervisors on their role. If we don't train them to treat people and to foster a team effort, we're going to tank. Do we give them enough tools so that they orient their employees on what do we have, what do they need to become productive in this company? Do we explain that job and how it's supposed to be done? And the orientation is not just the first day. The nurture and support may be needed for several weeks. And I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not saying that you have to give only the positive to employees, but they're two sides of the coin. Respect them and hold them accountable. And then you can finish with this: the allocation of restrooms, lunch periods, time clock procedures, and so forth should not be overlooked. And your foreman should be working with employees so that they feel value. The culture of employee retention is an employee's direct supervisor are major contributors on how employees view the organization. This statement, I have used it throughout my 40 years of working in agriculture. You can make it or break it. And then I'm going to finish with this. We can't stop employees from leaving unless we have a plan to make them stay. I want you to look at this and think about it from your organization. You need to have a plan to keep and retain employees. Be progressive in the way that you manage it instead of reactionary and just waiting for the problems to develop. Check on employees' needs and have a succession plan and build contingencies. And it's 2:42, and I think I have a few minutes to answer questions if anybody has them. My
We do.
contact
Hi.
information is there.
I'm gonna pot right back on Lourdes to help out with this.
Okay.
One of the interesting observations that Mariano was pointing out in our chat was just that question of, do you hire a foreman or do you hire an individual worker? Because the comment is based around the idea that like a really good foreman will have a crew with, traveling with them. So wondered if you've kind of looked at that.
You have to be very careful that a good foreman that has his own traveling crew might have his own little fiefdom. It's a kingdom of himself. And does he represent the values of your company or his own enterprise? And that is a two-edged sword. You can have a good foreman bringing good people, but if that foreman doesn't realize that he works for your company, you might be end up holding a bag of a lot of problems.
So have you seen both positive and negative examples of working in that situation?
I have had positives of having people that bring a good crew and informants that are, but they need to be tied down to the organization and say, you represent the company. You're an agent of the company. You're not all alone to themselves. Because I have seen the other side of the coin where the foreman doesn't get what he wants and he says, well, I'm taking my crew with me. Wait a minute. They're not your employees. They're employees of XYZ company.
Right.
Having that is, it forms almost a patroncito mentality where the employees work for somebody that is they see us as their boss, and they should be more of a business partnership on between employees and management, whether the management is a supervisor or a manager. The patroncito mentality, the peons, I'm working for them. I'm not responsible for my actions because my patron, my supervisor, my manager, my foreman is the one that is going to tell me what to do. It's in this day and age and in these regulations is very dangerous.
Yep.
Watch out for that.
Yep.
Okay.
And I wanted to loop back. I mean, it was interesting. You were just talking about at the beginning, you were giving us this historical perspective of remember back in the days when we never imagined a labor shortage. I'm just curious, kind of grounding it more like in the context of 2020, what thoughts you have for people in this session about what to do about a labor shortage today. Um, it's complicated, but
No, and,
what
and
what
I don't
what
have,
ideas would
yeah,
you encourage?
I don't have the right answers. As a matter of fact, I feel like I capped out of the problem by changing gears and going to another industry. And I'm in the chemical industry now, and I don't have, with the exception of a small farm that we do dates with, I'm not really in that environment of the shortage of labor. Although I have it for skilled labor too. So believe me, there is um but one of the things that I want you guys to take out of this conversation is that I might not have the answers in the short term. And I'm not saying, the H1B visa program, the H1, no, H1B, yes.
Yeah.
um H1A, and anyway, I'm beginning to get confused with the professional visas that we have. That type of visa might help you in the short term, and but even then, the recruitment is fairly precise, because if you treat employees well, they will come back to you, and you will have skilled labor. If you don't, then you're constantly having to canvass the country looking for how to fill your crews. So those principles that I told you can be for a temporary employee or for not. And the one thing that I want you to take, and you can take this one to the bank, is that you need to value the people that work for you now at all levels, not just the CFO and the CEO of the company, or the C-suite, or the supervisors. They're not interchangeable. These people that work with you for loyalty, or that they work with you because you treat them well, or you pay them well, or you promote them, those will be the ones that will make you or break you.
And I
Okay.
just want to call attention back to the poll. We did have that poll on how your company recruits labor,
Yes.
and we had central office takes applications. That was 7 people. The foreman, 6 people. Supervisor, 5 people. And then other was 6 people. So I just wanted to note there that you had been asking that question and that we're seeing quite a spread between the office to the foreman to the supervisor and to some other methods.
And there's benefits in about doing it in a centralized office because they will take the applications, but at the same time, when a foreman or a supervisor hire people, they really, our industry is not that faces come back again, and you know the good apples for the bad ones. So the foremans might be a lot more um and they able to determine whether the employee is going to be able to perform the job. So there's pluses and minuses to everything. Now, one of the problems with the foremans and supervisors is that they might not tell you if the person has some red flags. Like, for example, he had a workers' comp case, and it has every company that he has worked for has had claims, and he's maybe not a safe worker, or he created accidents, so he's not going to give you the productivity needed. But having a centralized office for applications can give you a better idea whether they have the proper documentation, and you can see the red flags there. So there's pluses and minuses, and I don't have the answer of which one is better, but as a company, you need to be aware of the shortcomings
Yep.
if you do it one way or the other.
Yep. And I did want to just note, we had a lot of people in terms of responding what industry they were in. We had several in the vineyards industry. So I wanted to just recognize that's a large contingent on this call. And that last slide you presented when you talked about retention, we only had a kind of a brief review of retention because there's obviously a ton of information that you have to
Yes.
present. So I'm wondering if there's any last thoughts that you might want to have, just bearing in mind where people are coming from in a large group and also thinking about retention, if there are advice on retention strategies that would be good to share with this group as a kind of a final thought.
As a final thought, it was really hard for me to put only 16 slides because I wanted to tell you so many things, and I wanted to give you so many examples that are throughout the years I have seen, and where companies are really did a best in class, and how they tank with regards to retention of valuable employees. And the one word that I have to, the one piece of advice that I want to leave you guys with is, you do have, at the end of the day, a disgruntled employee can, and especially in these days of social media, can really give you a bad reputation in the industry, and the people will believe them. So make sure that you work on your brand, that your brand to the employees, to the people that work with you, is that you're consistent, you're fair, you treat people fairly, that you pay them the salaries that they need, and that you never shortchange them. Okay.
That's wonderful. I think it's wonderful to think we came here to learn about recruitment and we're going away with branding. I love it. That's a
Yes.
very proactive strategy
Thank
as
you.
for any business to adopt.
Well, if you
Thank,
guys want to go to del filero, because del chisme filero, because you will see some people that destroy companies by the comments that they make. Don't go there; they don't treat you bad. So anyway,
yeah, that's a very valuable point. Well, we have come to the end of our session. I want
thank you.
to let our attendees know that I guess the chat box does stay open after the session ends. That's what I'm told, so that you can still have chats there. But other than that, I know there might be another session that you're interested to attend in a few minutes, so we will make space for that. But I want to say thank you so much, Lourdes.
Thank
You've
you.
just got such a wealth of valuable information, but also just a very dynamic way of discussing it with people, and it just
Thank
feels
you.
like we can absorb so much from you. It's really
Yeah.
helpful. So we'll finish by saying thank you again to our forum sponsors. We encourage all of you attendees to explore the exhibitor booths, and thank you so much for joining us today. We hope to see you around the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.